All right, we need to also go ahead and on-queue some other JavaScript things and some other font things in order for this to end up being ready to go for later. So I'm going to go ahead, since we started with the font stuff last time and we got our Google Fonts to work. You can see here that's loading my font for the content, which is Railway, and it's using Oswald for the headings. We need to also go ahead and pull in some font icons because later I'm going to want to use those, and it's really useful to have these font icons because you can use them for stand-ins for things like arrow buttons or any kind of button that serves as a shortcut, essentially like a visual shortcut. You can also use it for different kinds of social media things and so on. Anyway, so let's go ahead and get Font Awesome in, and I want to show you. If you go to fontawesome.io, that is the website. It's not .com, it's .io. And this is the website that you're going to come to, and right there, big as day, on the front page is a download button. And after you download it, you can look at this stuff, but I can also show you a little bit later when we actually go to use some fonts or some icons that behave as like a font glyph. Then we can go over that stuff later. But for right now, let's just go ahead and get it installed. And it's going to possibly, depending on when you're watching this video, ask you to do the Pro, and then you just go down here and say no thanks, just download the version 4. All right, so I'm going to go into my TopCat setup here, and down here where we have web fonts, I'm going to go ahead and include that in web fonts. And then the other thing too is that I'm going to go ahead and pull it in as a zip, but I'm going to get rid of the original zip later. So for right now, let's just go ahead and do that. And then I'm going to open it up, decompress it, I should say that, because on Windows you can actually open something without decompressing it and things don't work right. Anyway, so I'm going to go into my web fonts folder, and you can see here's the decompressed version, here's the compressed version. It's easy enough for me to just download from the web, so I'm going to move the original zip to trash. And I'm going to open this up. And what we're going to end up with here is we just want to go into the Font Awesome, whatever the version number is here. Mine's 470. You want to go into that folder and then drill down into the CSS folder. And this is what we're looking for. We're looking for the fontawesome.min.css file. And to figure out what it is that we actually want to keep in here, we need to just take a quick peek at the font, or excuse me, at the CSS code. So I'm going to drag this and open it in Dreamweaver, and we'll take a quick peek at what it looks like. And you can see right off the bat that it's got @FontFace, just like the other ones that we put together. And you'll see that the font family is Font Awesome, and it's got the source. And here's the thing, I want you to look and pay close attention to the pathways. You'll see that when it's looking for the source, it's actually looking for those EOT files and the WAF files and stuff, right? You see the WAF2 type, and then this actually has an open type font face type. Anyway, but the point I'm making is that it's using a pathway that's relative, and that's important because it means that this particular style sheet is relying on a specific hierarchy of files and folders. And so if you start moving your stuff around kind of the way that we did last time, then you have some liability to how well that's going to work. It worked okay last time because it wasn't, we weren't messing anything up with the pathways in terms of the way that the style sheet was calling stuff out. But this, if you take a look at it, I think it's going to be really helpful for you to understand that this is going up a directory, and then it's looking in a folder called fonts, and then it's looking for the Font Awesome web font files, right? And so if you want to look really quickly at the structure of that, this is that CSS file that we're looking at. So it's saying, okay, go up to its parent directory, which in this case is Font Awesome, and then look down into fonts. Okay, so that's what this .. is. It means go up a level to its parent, and then come down to fonts, and then inside of fonts you're going to find that that particular thing that you're looking for. So in this case it would be the Font Awesome web font EOT file right here. Okay, so that's going to be something that's pretty important that you pay attention to so that you don't mess anything up whenever you start to load this. So, you know, it's fine, you know, and then the other thing too is that you can leave the less and the SCSS stuff. That's later if you you know, decide that you're going to start using a preprocessor, which we're not getting into in this class. But and then this help us out file, it's just yeah, you don't need this file. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to move it to the trash or delete it or whatever. And so I'm going to keep all the rest of this though. And here are the changes that I'm going to make so that it's easier for me to see what's going on. I'm going to change, first of all, the name of this folder, and I'm going to just call it, I'm going to call it Font Awesome. And then I will leave the version on there, and I will say 4, but I'm going to do it as 4-7-0. And that way I know what version it is that I downloaded. And I'm not going to have any spaces or anything like that. If I wanted, I could have an underscore like that so that I know what version it is. And then because, you know, remember that I am going to have to use this in my functions whenever I go to enqueue it. So I want it to be something that's reasonably easy to type. And not too confusing. So the more stuff you get rid of, like if you make a decision like, hey, I'm not going to use underscores, I'm only going to use dashes and no spaces, you could do something like this, right? Font dash awesome, but I'm just going to leave it at font awesome as one word dash 4-7-0. Okay, and so we'll leave it that way. We'll leave this called fonts because, you know, this pathway depends on it. The only thing that you could do to avoid that is you could literally do a find. If you wanted to change your pathways around, you could do a find of this pattern, which is //fonts/, and you could change it. You know, you could rewrite it in the whole file, but just to keep things simple, I'm going to go ahead and do it just leave it the way it is. But I'm just going to change the name of this parent folder because you see, it's not going to make a difference because this is a relative pathway. It's not calling for the name of the parent directory. It's just saying whatever my parent directory happens to be, and it doesn't look at the actual name. It just goes up a directory. So I can call this whatever I want at this point in time. So so the thing that I need to pay attention to at this point is, you know, how do I get here and how do I get to one of these files? And I'm going to probably use the font awesome min. And here's the thing, you might look at this and go, okay, well, these already have dashes in them, so maybe I should keep a dash up here for consistency. So that's fine if you want to do that. I am going to change my what these were original dots though. I'm going to change that. I don't like having extra dots and things that I don't have to whenever it's version numbers. So let's go ahead and onqueue this, okay? Let's go back to Dreamweaver. I'm going to go ahead and close this font awesome min file. And I'm going to jump over here to my functions file. And we'll scroll down here, and just below the font for headings and font for content, I'm going to go ahead and put another comment in, and I'm going to say font icons, right? And at this point, I can go ahead and I can, you know, copy this. Let's go ahead and copy this, and we're going to paste this here. And what I can change now is where it says topcat dash content dash font. I can change this so that it's font awesome. We'll give it a new name. Just call it awesome. I'm going to call it font awesome with one word. And then we need to get the template URI, just like we have before. And then we are still going to go into web fonts. All right. And then here's the thing that we need to change. We need to change the path here so that we're going into, if you want to double check our pathway, I'm going to just select the name of this folder. It's inside of web fonts. See up here, you can see that's the web fonts folder. I'm going to copy the name of this folder so that I don't misspell it. And then I'm going to paste it, and then I put a /, and then the next directory that I need to drill down into for that CSS file is CSS, and then I'm going to be looking for the min name. I'm going to get the whole file name, copy that. So I need to take this and type CSS / and then the file name, okay? And so that's going to pull those font icons in. Let's go ahead and save that. And now we can go and test it. So let's jump back over here. Actually, sorry, before we test it, what we need to do is we need to put it in something. We need to actually figure out what to put it in. So we need to place an icon in something that's going to show up. So a really quick and dirty way to just do a fast test without actually, changing anything really important is we can go here to Files, and then let's just open up the header, and let's get this header file, and we're going to put something in there that's temporary that we can always take back out really easily. Let's pop that closed. And then I'm going to go over here and maybe like just below the header so that it's really easy to see this thing pop in. In fact, actually, let's just go to the very bottom of the page, right where the content begins. And inside of just the beginning of the content, we're going to add something. But I want to show you how to figure out what to add. Go over here to Font Awesome. And I actually jumped over here to examples, and it's this link right here where it says examples, and it tells you exactly, like how you can implement stuff, right? And you can look at this, but essentially the I stands, it's an icon tag, and it explains that that it's something that's intended to be used like this. So anyway, you can take this any of these and just do a really quick test, right? If you wanted to use this camera as an example. The other thing too that you could do is you could jump over here to where it says icons, and you could find an icon that you might want to just throw in there for whatever reason. So let's just take like this envelope, right? And then what we would do is we would just come here and let's copy this, and this is what the icon's going to look like. And let's jump back over to Dreamweaver, and we'll just paste that right there. I'm going to save this, and here's the thing. I need to upload several things to do this test. I need to upload the header file. I need to upload the functions file because we saved it, but we didn't upload it. And by the way, let me just take a second to remind you of something. Those of you who have used Dreamweaver in the past, you know that one of the settings that you can change is so that every time you hit the save button, it will choose to automatically upload to the server and overwrite what's there. I don't elect to do that. I like to wait and make my own choice about when to upload stuff. That is your decision, but just be aware that if you have your settings set up to do that, you might make some changes that you don't intend to upload right away, and you might lose your backup that's on the server. So just be aware of that. Anyway, so we need to upload functions.php, this header file that we just modified temporarily. Header file is header.php, and then we also need to upload all of the web fonts right here, right? So we need to upload that. So I'm going to click the put button, and this is going to have no, I'm sorry, not the whole web fonts. We don't have to do the whole thing. We need to upload this entire Font Awesome folder, right? So that's going to be pretty important. So, and the other thing too is if you don't right now, if you don't want to upload the less and the SCSS, you could just choose to upload these things, and then it'll automatically place the folder up here for you, right? So you could go ahead and do that, and it won't take as long because the stuff that's in the less folder and the SCSS folder are gigantic. There's a lot of files in there, and you can see that this is taking a minute as it is, all right? And anyway, so that one's done, and then I also need to go back, as I mentioned, I need to grab this header and this functions file, and I need to upload those and overwrite what's there, go back over here to our page, and we're going to refresh. And you see here, there's my little icon right there, okay? And so I'm going to get rid of that, but now we can use icons that are true scalable vector graphics. And then if you want these to be larger, what you need to do is you go back over here and you need to add an additional class right here. And let me show you, if we go into the Font Awesome tutorial under examples, it shows you how you can get larger icons, right? So if you come here, you can simply add a class like that goes 2 times, 3 times, 4x, 5x, and so on. And so for instance, like if you wanted to add, let's say 5x, let's just grab this additional class and we'll add it at the end of our little envelope icon. So let's put a space there and add the FA-5X. Let's save that. And then here's another way that you can put stuff up there, by the way. If you click this little icon, you can say put, and it will go ahead and override it. So now I can come back and let's go here, hit the refresh button, and you see that put a much larger version there. And then if you jump back over here to the example page, you can see that it also allows you to do fixed width icons. You know, you can style this FAFW, FW stands for fixed width. You can, you know, write your own styles for this kind of stuff, and it'll show exactly how big this whole thing is supposed to be. You can also add, you know, the list group item, whatever, right? And so there are all these different ways that you can make some changes, and it gives you all of these different classes that you can use. Like if you wanted to rotate something, if you wanted to create stacked icons, it gives you a bunch of examples. So anyway, I just wanted to show you this, but the most important thing is that we know that that's working now. I'm going to go ahead and close that. And I'm going to also go over here and I'm going to take this icon out for right now because I don't actually want it to be there. I'm going to save this and I'm going to put this page back up here. And by the way, if I use this put as opposed to the one over in files, it only puts the page that's open up there. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then we can jump back over here, do our test to make sure that it is in fact not there anymore. Okay, and so that's how you can go ahead and get the Font Awesome stuff working, and you're certain that it's working so that you don't try to use it later and it's broken. All right, so let's go ahead and close out this header file. We're not going to use it anymore. The next thing I want to show you really quickly is how we can add some functionality by on-queuing some JavaScript that will allow us to basically have some fallbacks for older browsers. And the things that we're going to do, I'm going to go ahead and add them. I'm going to put them before my style sheet. And I'm going to put a comment here, and we're going to do modernizer, modernizer. And there is no E, hold on, IZR. Okay, I can't spell. All right, and that's .js and respond.js. And what these do is, well, respond is going to deal with CSS3 media queries, all right, for things that don't allow, I cannot seem to spell tonight, don't really support media queries for older browsers, so that we can still have responsive stuff. And Modernizer is going to use some fallback CSS methods. Okay, it's going to allow us to deal with stuff that's fallback. So anyway, it's going to be really easy to unqueue this stuff, but we actually need to download the files into our file system real quick. So let's jump back over to our browser and let's go ahead and grab Modernizer. So you can go to modernizer.com, and it's MODERNIZR. There's no ER at the end, it's just zr.com. And you're going to click on the download link. And if you come down on the left side, you're going to scroll down where it says options, and then it says minify, and then it said add CSS classes. So that's, you want to make sure that that's selected, and then you can click on build. And you're going to download one of these. And so let's just download the regular build, and I'll show you how it is that you can work with this. And I'm going to go ahead and not download it in web fonts. Let's go up to TopCat. We'll go inside of our JS folder, and for right now, we'll just download it here inside of our JS folder. And instead of modernizer-custom, I'm going to call it modernizer.min.js because I did have the minimized version selected. So that's what I'm going to call it, and we'll download that. Okay, and you can double check your file system and make sure that it shows up the way that you expect it to. Here, let's go back up to TopCat, and I'm going to go into my JS folder, and there's my modernizer.min.js, and you can take a peek at it, and it's got some code there, so it's good. Now, the other thing, before we go ahead and unqueue that, let's go ahead and also grab from GitHub, we're going to grab the respond.js file. And if you're not sure how to get to this, the easiest way is to just go into your toolbar for Google and just type respond.js like that. All right, and then it'll pop up as the first hit. And we're not going to use the CDN, which is the Content Delivery Network. We're just going to go ahead and download the file itself. So I'm going to click on the GitHub, and that's how I got here. And what we can do is, if you click on Find File, it will take you to his entire set of files. And so if you want, you can just go straight here to respond.js, and you can take a peek at that. And then you can look at the functions and stuff in there if you are comfortable with any kind of JavaScript. But one of the things you would recognize, if you were to take a peek at this, is that you'll see that file, where is it, right here, the file itself is something that you could use, either respond.min.js, or if you wanted to find the one that's the source, you could go to source respond.js. But the one that doesn't have the min in it doesn't have the minified code, meaning that it has a bunch of line breaks and tabs and things. So if I click on this icon right here to take me to the minified source, you can see it's all like in one line. And anyway, that helps you essentially understand how this looks. So you can just use that file. You could just copy this entire thing and paste it into your own file and save it. That's one option. Because what's going to happen when you go to download it is it's going to download a whole bunch of stuff, and it might be confusing. But let's just say that you want to not do this. You can just go directly to, let's go to the code, and it takes me back to his main section. And I can just go where it says clone or download, and I'm going to download a zip. And I'm going to go ahead and download the respond master in the JS folder, and I'll show you how to pick through it, okay, so that you can get just what you need. And it downloads it as a respond master.zip. I'll click on that, and you can see here's the original zip. I'm just going to move that to the trash. And here is the respond master folder. I don't need all of this stuff, and this is really confusing if you've never messed with any of this. But if I go where it says source, we have the regular respond.js, but I want in the DEST folder, I actually want the minified version. So I can take this. I'm not going to use all this other stuff. I can take this. I'm going to copy this, and we're just going to go into the main JS folder, and I'm going to paste that item. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of this in a minute. Let's just leave that there for a second. But now we've got our respond.min.js file, and we've got our modernizer.min.js file, and we can go ahead and on-queue those now. To get this started, I want to show you something really quickly. This is a little bit different than pulling in a style sheet, right? Because this is WP on-queue style. We're going to pull something in that is, it's called WP on-queue script, right? And so we can take a look at this version down here, and I want to show you something. I'm going to take a look at this. Let's just copy this as an example, and I'm going to paste this up here. So first, let's do modernizer. And if you remember, this first position is the name that we're giving this this on-queue script, and so I'm going to call this Topcat modernizer, and make sure that you spell it the way you want to actually have it be later. And then you still want to do the get template directory URI, and then that's the concatenation mark to make sure it goes and finds the correct thing. But this is obviously navigation.js is not the correct name, so let's just get rid of that file name, and then let's go see the correct file name that we're supposed to be using. So if we come up here, let's just copy this and make sure you get the .js at the end. I'm going to copy that, and we'll paste it right there, and so that's going to be the correct path. Now, and then here's this thing, it's array, and then it's got this other thing which I don't need. And if I get rid of this, here's the thing though, because I want this to say false, I actually don't want these quotation marks because false is a Boolean, and I'm going to show you what these things mean in a minute. And then here we've got true, which is a Boolean. Let me show you what this all means. I'm going to demystify it. I'm going to pull up a resource that's from the developer.wordpress.org website. And this kind of stuff is really helpful, so that if you see stuff like this and you just like, yeah, I don't know what all these different arguments are supposed to mean. You know, when I say arguments, I mean, you know, the parameters that are being passed, like this is the handle, right? That's the first argument, and it says that it has to be in the form of a string. So the handle is the name that we're giving it, okay? And so here I'm going to just sort of scoot this over so that you can kind of see it side by side a little bit. Well, I guess I have to scoot this over too. All right, so let's kind of make these a little bit side by side, and then it'll help you see this, I think, a little bit better. Right, so we've got WP on QScript, and the first thing we've got is this top cat modernizer over here, and you see that that's called the handle. That's the first parameter or argument it's being passed into this function. And then the second thing that it's requiring us to look at is the source destination of the file. And so in our case, we're not using a CDN, which is on the network. We are using this get template directory URI function, but then we're concatenating with the absolute path to that file. All right, so that takes care of our SRC, our second parameter or argument. And then after this, it says array, and it says DEPS. What that stands for is dependencies. And it's saying if that file that you're using has any dependencies that it has to depend on, right? It has other things that it's requiring for its functionality and use. Like if the script calls other scripts, then you would have to list those things here, right? We don't have that for what we're doing here. And that's the third argument. Then the fourth argument is the version. And you can either put it in quotation marks if it's a string, right? That would be a string, so that you can itemize out the version number. And you can do that if you want. You don't have to. And then, or you can use a Boolean, right, or null. You could leave it there, null, and then you could basically say false, like there is no version to report. So that's what I did. I changed it from the thing that I had copied, which was, excuse me, down here, it was like this version number from something else, right? And I just copied it and I pasted it, but because I'm changing it to a Boolean, right, which is true, false, I can't put quotes around it because it can't be a string. So if it's a Boolean, otherwise it would think that I was trying to say as a string that the version was version false, right? So anyway, and then the last argument right here where I've got true is it's the Boolean. It's saying basically, is it in the footer? So that means, are we loading it in the top of the page, in the head of the document, or are we loading it down in the footer of the document? And for this, for Modernizer, you now can load it down in the footer. And the reason that I would want to load it in the footer, I would put true, by the way, if I want it to load in the footer. The reason I would want it to load down there is because if it's a big script to run through, then it adds on to the page load time for the rest of the page to show up. And so if you've got a bunch of heavy duty JavaScript, then most of the time, not always, but most of the time, you can load your JavaScript down in the footer. And because it's not going to destroy your page, you know, if things get a little out of whack. It's not going to happen because the JS will still load pretty quickly. But if you load it at the top, it might do things like prevent your images from loading fast enough or your fonts from loading as fast. That is, by the way, one of the reasons why, if you're using something like like JavaScript for Adobe's Typekit, that you would want to put that at the very, very beginning so your fonts start loading immediately, because otherwise it'll start loading some default font until it can get the right font through the JavaScript, and it might make your page jump and look weird. Anyway, so anyway, if you look at this page, it actually describes all the things that I just talked about, right? So we've got source, dependencies, version, and footer, and so on. And it gives you some examples, okay? So you can check that out, do a search for this page. All right, now the next thing is we're gonna do pretty much the same thing with response, respond.js. So I'm going to copy this, and we're basically going to keep a lot of the same values, but instead of modernizer, I'm going to say respond. And here we're going to say respond. And I think that that's respond.min.js, and I can take a quick peek. And yep, it is, and that's fine. So I'm going to go ahead and just make a break here. And then if I want, I can do, this is, I'll do it in lowercase modernizer. I think I misspelled it again. Modern, yep, izer. And then here I'll do respond. Okay, and so there we've got that on queued, and I'm going to save this. I'm going to go ahead and put that file up there, but don't forget, I also have to put my dependencies. Again, if you don't have Dreamweaver set to also upload the dependency support, then you need to go ahead and do it yourself. So here's the JS. I'm going to take, let's see where it is, modernizer, and I'm going to take this respond, and we're going to put those up there as well. And put those things up there. All right, and so we're good to go there. And I'm going to go ahead and we'll just test the thing to make sure that I don't get any weird errors, even though you're not really going to see it in action yet, because I'm sure you're on a modern browser. Let's just go ahead and refresh, make sure that we don't have any problems. You can just double check by doing a hard reset with the shift key, and I think we're good to go, at least in terms of having all of that stuff loaded up. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and end this demonstration right here, but in upcoming ones, there's still a couple of things that we need to talk about. And one is the last thing that, for right now anyway, that we're going to go ahead and pull in. We're going to go ahead and pull in some functionality for a sidebar, and then I'll start talking to you about doing a little bit of styling with that, and we'll get into more substantive styling after that.